Trickle of money, flood of change. Water is perhaps the singular most important entity we have on our planet, and it has defined much of what we have done as a human race. Our cities have almost always formed around bodies of water, for drinking, bathing, transportation, recreation, growing food, general health, and well-being. When Roger Williams founded Providence in the 1600s, he outlined a plan of the settlement, giving every single family an equal portion of land along the water. When our astronauts go up into space and our telescopes turn towards the other planets, our number one question is always, so can life be sustained on any of them? And our answer? Only if fresh water exists. Water covers our planet and fills our bodies at about the same significant ratio, around 60 to 70%. Clearly, we understand how important water is, and yet we've increasingly taken less and less good care of it. We've commoditized it and allowed it to become something separate from our daily habits, separate from our production of food, and separate from our creation of culture. The following excerpts from the documentary Tapped clarify the problem of this separation.
Although 70% of the earth is covered by water, only 3% of it is considered fit to drink. Is that really enough to sustain all 6 billion of us?
At this point, water may just be a resource as scarce as oil.
Water is in many respects the oil of the 21st century because if you don't have it, it can lead to conflict.
By the year 2030, two-thirds of the world will be lacking access to clean drinking water.
The wars of the future could end up being fought over water if we don't find a way to reconcile our differences in terms of access to water.
This is a problem that every single person can be dealing with regardless of where they live in the world.
Safe drinking water and sanitation is the number one health crisis that we're facing around the world. Half the people who are sick today are sick needlessly from waterborne disease worldwide. Every 15 seconds, a child dies from preventable waterborne disease.
In 2004, when Johannesburg, South Africa introduced prepaid water meters, poverty-stricken families resorted to fetching their drinking water from contaminated rivers, setting off one of the worst cholera outbreaks in decades.
I think this is one of the most serious economic issues in the world. Are we going to let our water supply be owned by a few interests? I mean, think about it right now. The cost of bottled water is more than the cost of gasoline on a base of a liter. When you consider that, you see that water is really, the next empire.
The World Bank places the value of the world water market at $800 billion. That's a huge amount of money. So you can imagine why these huge corporations are salivating over getting into the water market. They really see water as blue gold, as just a source of profit. They don't see it as a fundamental right, as something essential for people and for nature.
Pharmaceuticals are showing up because we use antibiotics massively in the agricultural industry, and because lots of people are taking drugs in their homes that just sort of end up in the local waste stream that finds its way into drinking water.
Yeah, this is where the whole story begins. When the snow falls on the top of the mountains, all we can see there is a little bit. That's basically like distilled water. It's some of the purest water you can find. Now, part of the protecting it here is as soon as we move just a mile downstream, that's where all these chemicals start coming in from our day-to-day use. Everything that we do is affecting people downstream because our sewage is water. This water is rich in nutrients, and therefore bacteria, algae, bugs, plants start growing in it, which then the fish come in to eat that material. The problem is that along with those nutrients that are a good thing are these endocrine disrupting chemicals that are not a good thing. Bisphenol A, nonylphenol, diethyl phthalate, all the plasticizers.
Every time we sample downstream of the wastewater plant, we find fish like this, gonads that have both ovarian and testicular tissue. Go upstream, never see it. Never found an intersex fish upstream.
Residents here are having to pay twice for water. They're forced to buy or make the decision to buy bottled water because their tap water is toxic and they cannot drink it. Some of the residents are spending up to $330 a month just on water.
farming is largely a self-regulated industry, there's no oversight of the pesticides and fertilizers being used. As a result, communities like Tooleyville end up with polluted and undrinkable groundwater. A canal with clean drinking water runs just along the edge of Tooleyville. Farmers are the #1 users of groundwater.
Worldwide, we use about 40 to 50% of water for agriculture. Here in the U.S., it's about 70%.
They're also the #1 polluters of groundwater.
Virtually all of us are downstream from major farming operations. People in the city have water that comes to them that is already contaminated by animal waste, by pesticides, and fertilizers.
We can continue to take wastewater and discharge it to the ocean and simply waste it, or we can take it, treat it to a high level, reintroduce it into the groundwater basin, and have a source of water that is continuously renewed.
Water is a basic human right. It's necessary for the survival of life on the planet. When you start commodifying the necessities of life in such a way as to make it more difficult for people to gain access to those necessities, you have the basis for serious political instability.
As a child, I remember being extremely conscious of the water around me. I always told my mother that water tasted better than ice cream, and ice cream was a serious favorite of mine. My most present memories of childhood all tend to surround the events of rainstorms, the magic of backyard puddles, and the way the smells, sounds, and presence of particular wildlife would change with the rain. Shifts between rain and sunshine were as regular as day and night for me. I knew the rain would always come to turn our beloved forest green, because my preschool teacher taught me about evaporation and condensation. The image of this perfect circle, in which water droplets changed over time and space, drastically altering their form and their feeling, but always becoming water droplets once again, absorbed me. Then I knew for certain I could use all the water in the world. I could drink it now and contain in my body the same molecules Albert Einstein had once washed his hands with after completing some groundbreaking experiment. The same molecules my distant descendants might snowshoe over on a trek through the mountains 100 years from now. Needless to say, this new knowledge deepened even further for me the overwhelming impressiveness of nature. I was heavily disappointed only a little while later, when I learned this cycle, though perfect, was much more complicated, and wrought with many more consequences than I had been led to believe. That water has to pass through many tanks and pipes and pumps to get to the faucet. On its way it is touched and tampered with by many bodies, many people, and many corporations. Even the rain that I loved so much to dance about and was affected, was impure. So I began scolding my younger brother every time he used any amount more than a single drip of water on his toothpaste each morning.